Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Friday, March 27th. So we're kind of at the end of the final full week of March here. Um, Getting ready to get into April here. Um, so, of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in here before we get started. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week this week. Um, we're just a few weeks out. So it looks like we have three people in. So maybe I will talk about what's on tap for tonight. So on tonight's show, of course, we're going to take a look at some articles from MeTV Tunes, including, I guess it was recently reported, even though I guess it happened earlier this year, but it was just reported within the past week or so, the passing of former Hanna-Barbera composer Ted Nichols. So um, we'll, of course, take a look at that article, look back at some of the work he did. Also, there's an article on why Popeye loves spinach so much. And we'll also take a look at some of the what they call the short kings of Hanna-Barbera, some of those short bosses that we all know of, like Mr. Spacely, like Mr. Peebles, Mr. Tweedle. Plus, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up. We have quite a bit in the wrestling wrap up to go over as well. And of course, looking back to last night's TNA and Ring of Honor, looking ahead to tonight, some big shows tonight, including, of course, WWE, along with WWE SmackDown. Um, TNA will be having its Sacrifice pay per view. We'll just take a quick peek at that card. And then also, Ring of Honor is co-promoting another one of their Global Wars events with this time with Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling up in Canada. A lot of the former stars from Impact Wrestling from just a few years ago, under, of course, the guidance of Scott D'Amore, and then of course tomorrow night with AEW, and then of course we'll also wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with all that being said and done, why don't we go ahead and get started then? Let me go ahead and pull up the article here. Articles. Here we go with that. All right. Hey, Metal. Popeye is a paid uh, propagandist. Don't believe a word he he turns out. What, because he promotes spinach so much? Is that why they're metal? uh, Anyways, so let's get into this first article. R.I.P. Rest in peace, Ted Nichols, composer of Scooby Doo, Johnny Quest, and more Hanna-Barbera classics. The composer behind Scooby Doo, Johnny Quest, and many of the Hanna-Barbera classics will be clearly missed. He was 97 years old. So this is a guy who basically did a lot of the music, and in particular maybe even the theme songs for some of your favorite Hanna-Barbera cartoons. So, article published March 24th, which of course was earlier this week. I believe it was, let's see, it was Tuesday, I believe. And there's, of course, the Mystery Lane gang right there. Got Fred and Daphne dancing, and Shaggy and Velma dancing right there. So let's get into this. Yeah, actually, it was kind of funny because it was actually RJ who initially brought this story to my attention, but then when I looked into it, happened in January, and that's the only reason I didn't cover it before now. because apparently passed away in January. So I felt like it was a little late, but anyways, let's get into this then. Actually, let me one more time here before we get started. Let me just go off camera here real quick. I'll put some music on while I'm gone. All right, I'm back. So let's get into this. Ted Nichols, longtime composer for Hanna-Barbara, passed away on January 9th. He was 97 years old. Nichols' career in music began at age 10 when he began playing the violin. In 97, so let's see, 26. Oh, that meant he would have probably been born like in 1929 then, probably, most likely. 1946, 40, he would have been 17 years old when he started playing, playing the violin. In 1946, that he would have been about 17 then, 80 years ago. He joined the Navy and played saxophone in the Navy's swing band before transferring to the Air Force, where he became the commanding officer of the U.S. Air Force Bandsman Training School. He studied music at Baylor University and Texas A&M. After his military service, Nichols worked as a high school and college band director and also sang with the quote-unquote Dapper Dan barbershop quartet at Disneyland. He also served as Minister of Music at Church of the Open Door, where he met a Hanna-Barbera animator in the choir who introduced him to William Hanna. One of Nichols' first projects with Hanna-Barbara's then music director, Hoyt Curtin, was the score of Johnny Quest in 1965. Curtin left and Nichols was promoted to music director and wrote the scores for The Secret Squirrel Show, The Adam Ant Show, Wacky Races, Space Ghost, Josie and the Pussycats, and Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And many, many more. Part of Nichols' job was adding musical cues to cartoons, and he described the process in an interview with Williams News. Quote, I used to take the score and sit down with my music editors, and we'd count the frames, and we'd say, quote, well, here I got to hit Flintstone here, or here he's climbing up this, on small quote. I looked at a lot of drawings about Scooby-Doo before I even wrote, because I tried to get the feeling in my mind, hey, this is the kind of style that you want to write for, unquote. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways, back to the article, of course. Kevin Sandler, co-editor of Hanna-Barbera Conversations, told Hollywood Reporter, quote, Ted's music bridged the tension between science fiction and slapstick programming on Saturday mornings. He used less brass and more high woodwinds and violins in his instrumentation for Scooby-Doo and other comedy series to achieve a less intense, funnier sound, unquote. After leaving Hanna-Barbera, Nichols wrote 5 operas and also served as the international musical director of Campus Crusade for Christ and started the Master of Church Music program at the Western Conservative Baptist Seminary in Portland. His family announced his passing to the Hollywood Reporter on March 23rd. He will be missed and will be fondly remembered through his music. So this past Monday, and when he... So there we go with that story. So if you remember some of the music from Hanna-Barbera, you know, if it wasn't Hoyt Curtin who was involved in it, was definitely Ted Nichols. So, all right. So let's go ahead and, well, I guess we should go ahead and at least do a quick moment of silence, even though he passed away back in January. We didn't hear about it till 2 months after the fact. So, anyways, we'll do a quick moment of silence and we'll move on to the next article then. All right, there we go. All right, so getting ready to move on to the next story then. And I would imagine maybe Metal, you might have some more to say on this one because of your initial comment there. So let's see what's going on here with this article. The story behind Popeye's love of spinach. Popeye and his love affair with spinach have made such a positive impact. Ironically, it all stems from a mistake. Article published March 25th, 2026, which of course was Wednesday, by MeTV10 staff. So there's Popeye holding the spinach can right there. All right, so olive oil isn't Popeye's true love. Spinach is. The leafy green that gives Popeye the powers of super strength and indestructibility. Spinach is a lasting part of Popeye's legacy. The spinach growing town of Crystal, Tennessee, erected a statue of Popeye at their city hall to honor the character's impact on the spinach industry. Two other spinach growing communities, Springdale and Alma, Arkansas, similarly honored Popeye with statues and fountains. When most agricultural communities struggled during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl, the popularity of Popeye kept these communities alive with the sudden demand for spinach. More recently, in 2010, a study found that children who watched Popeye cartoons increased their consumption of vegetables. Yeah, I remember one of the earliest, I think it might have been the first or second Popeye cartoon. It was like one of the early ones. I think Billy Costello was still voicing Popeye at the time. It was kind of a animation live action hybrid short where you see this little boy like coming out of a newsstand, whatever. He's got a Popeye got a Popeye comic in his hand and all that, and this bigger kid comes along and starts to bully him and pushes him over and like says, "No, you shouldn't read that. You're just a small fry." And then Popeye, from the pages of his book, tells the kid. So it wasn't like first or second, but it was more common in his early days. But some of his early adventures, and even pointed out how spinach was into a key component in that. So then, by the end of the film, of course, I don't remember the exact title of the cartoon, but I'm sure as I describe it, many of you probably know which one I'm talking about, even if I don't remember the title off the top of my head. A little kid, you see the little kid with this big can of spinach. He's reaching in there, eating it, and then he goes and beats up the bigger kid. So that's just funny. So, anyways, as we continue on with the article here. So Popeye and his love affair with spinach have made such a positive impact. Ironically, it all stems from a mistake. When Popeye initially appeared in the Thimble Theater comics, Popeye ate a regular diet and got his super strength by rubbing the head. Ate a regular diet and got his super strength by rubbing the head of a whiffle hen. A few years later, as Popeye and Olive Oyl became the stars of the comic strip, spinach suddenly became the secret to Popeye's success. Where there are lots of rumors about why the switch was made, from rubbing the hen to gulping down a whole can of spinach, but the most likely reason is that spinach is a nutrient-dense food, and during the Great Depression, most Americans were undernourished in their vitamins and minerals. After Popeye made the switch to spinach in 1931, consumption skyrocketed, and suddenly spinach consumption was up to 33%. So a third of the country was eating spinach, basically. And that kind of makes sense. It's this is actually one of the cases where role modeling is actually where unfortunately we've seen in comics today where role modeling is being used for evil purposes over the last 5, 6, 7 years. This was a time when role modeling was used for good purposes. Oh. Children who didn't like spinach thought of how strong it made Popeye and powered through the heaps of leafy greens. Popeye made spinach seem like a cool superpower giving food, and the public wanted more. I guess that's what you meant when you made your comment there, Metal, huh? While spinach is a great vegetable, its nutritional values were misreported long before Popeye started eating it. In 1870, German chemist Ulrich von Wolf was studying the iron levels of different vegetables. While recording his findings that 100 grams of spinach contained 3.5 milligrams of iron, he misplaced a decimal point and wrote that spinach had 35 milligrams of iron. This quote-unquote fact became widespread and made spinach the ultimate food until 1937, when scientists debunked it. By this point, Popeye had been preaching the good word of spinach consumption for over 6 years. Spinach was part of the brand and the brand of the established comic strip and budding cartoon series. Yeah, that doesn't necessarily, just because they debunked it doesn't necessarily mean that in Popeye's universe it still doesn't have its good effects. Instead of making Popeye abandon his precious spinach, Popeye's creators pointed back to a comic from 1932 where Popeye says he eats spinach because of its high content of vitamin A. In the strip, Popeye says, quote, spinach is full of vitamin A, unsmall quote, and that's what makes humans among humans strong and healthy, unquote. With this loophole, Popeye continued to eat spinach in every comic and cartoon, and encouraged the rest of the world to eat more spinach with him. While misreported iron content may have made spinach popular and inspired the creators to give Popeye the spinach, Popeye was always in it for the vitamin A. Watch Popeye and Pals on MeTV Tunes. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. And Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific. All right, so now we got one more article we're going to go over here. All right, then. All right, so let's see. So now that we're okay, so now let's move on to this article here. The Short Kings of Hanna-Barbera, a collection of our favorite fun-sized characters. Article published March 22nd, which was yesterday, 3:10 p.m. by MeTV Stats. So there's, of course, Mr. Peebles from Magilla Gorilla, among the selection I'm sure we will read about today. Let's get into this then. Hanna-Barbera's classic cartoons have a feature that stands out. They really make sure to include short characters. Almost every cartoon has one or two short characters, and if the show is animal focused, like Magilla Gorilla or Wally Gator, the most important human characters are usually short kings. Quote unquote, short king is a term of endearment for shorter individuals who still stand tall and prove that great things often come in small packages. let's take a look at the short kings of Hanna-Barbera. Number 1, Barney Rubble. One of Hanna-Barbera's first short kings, Barney from the Flintstones, was modeled after Ed Norton from the Honeymooners. Interestingly, lots of characters call Barney Shorty, but Fred never does. Yeah, and Barney, of course, voiced by the late great Mel Blanc. Then I'm sure you might have something you might want to acknowledge about that. All right, so Barney. Number 2, Mr. Spacely, voiced by, of course, I think there's another guy who I think was voiced by Mel Blanc, I believe. George Jetson's short-fused boss, Mr. Spacely, is one of the 3 human characters outside of the immediate Jetson family. So they needed him to be sized a little differently to stand out amongst the tall Jetsons and robots. There he's hugging George there, who was, of course, voiced by the late, great George O'Hanlon. Number 3, Mr. Twiddle from Wally Gator. Like many of the animal-themed Hanna-Barbera shows, some fans have speculated that maybe Mr. Twiddle is drawn so tiny because he's standing next to Wally Gator, or next to Wally. Some alligators are up to 15 feet long, so anyone who would look short standing next to that, but until proven otherwise, we happily include Mr. Twiddle as a Hanna-Barbera short king. Now, Mr. Twiddle, let's see. I think he might have been. I can't remember exactly, but I think he might have, based on what I can think, he might have been voiced by. Let's see, no, not Alan. No, Howard Morris, maybe. I think it was Howard Morris. It might have been Howard Morris who provided Mr. Twiddle's voice. Just thinking about it now. Number 4, Major Minor. Now I don't remember who voiced Major Minor because I don't think he was in that as many cartoons. So Major Minor, Snagglepuss's main friend enemy, who hunts Snagglepuss one moment and then has tea with him the next. Something about his mustache reminds us of the original cartoon short king, Yosemite Sam. The king in Yippee Yappy and Yahooey is tasked with running a kingdom while dealing with three airhead guard dogs. His short stature makes him perfect for getting on Yippee Yappy Yahooey's level to boss them around more. Yeah, I think his shortness complements the comedic aspects of this show. So, yeah. Anyways, continuing on now, of course, number 6, the Anthill Mob. The Anthill Mob in Wacky Races is a gang of short kings. They're allies with the beautiful Penelope Pitstop, and writers for the show said they base the Anthill Mob's relationship with her on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Yeah, you do kind of get that. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, the Anthill Mob originally started out on Wacky Races, and then when Penelope Pitstop got her own spinoff of called The Perils of Penelope's Pit Stop. They joined her, and it was during that show, actually. It was more during The Perils of Penelope's Pit Stop that you saw their interactions a little bit more highlighted. Number 7, Mr. Peebles from Miguel Gorilla. Perhaps our favorite of the Short Kings, Mr. Peebles, is a pet store owner who always wants, no needs, to sell Miguel Gorilla, but terribly misses Miguel every time he leaves. Mr. Peebles faces a never-ending struggle of wanting his friend to stay, but going bankrupt on bananas. Yep. Yeah. And the thing is, Mr. Peebles, I think, was actually voiced by Dawes Butler. I believe he might have been the one to voice him, but either Dawes Butler or Howard Morris, one of those two, voiced him. Now, in the show, there's a little girl named Oogie, who's voiced by Jean Vanderpill, who would love to take Miguel home. The problem is, her parents won't let her. Wonder why? Right? Puppy power! Scrappy-Doo. We couldn't do a Short King story without our all-time favorite Pipsqueak. Fun fact, Scooby-Doo creators Ruby Spears almost went with a short scrappy dog instead of a big goofy Scooby. Luckily, we eventually got Scrappy and Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, and the franchise has never been the same. And we do. I think I did recently read a story about that the other day as well. They did talk about that Scooby was almost, a short, scrappy dog instead of the big Great Dane. Of course, there were two guys who over time voiced Scrappy. Don Messick did for a number of the series, but also Lenny Weinrib would come in and voice him at times too. So Lenny Weinrib, who would go on, of course, to play Hunk in Voltron, Defender of the Universe, among other things. Watch House of Hanna-Barbera on MeTV Tunes weekdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 8 a.m. Pacific, Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Alrighty then, so there we go with that. Let's see, we're at 33 minutes here. And considering, as I said, did have quite a bit to go over in terms of the wrap up today, so we probably will just get right into the wrestling wrap up here. Of course, friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. And I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. I go for my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. So, with all that being said, of course, let's now move on to the wrestling wrap up. As first, let's go back to last night and take a look back at last night's TNA Total Nonstop Action. So on last night's Total Nonstop Action, coming from, this was of course the go home Impact before tonight's Sacrifice pay-per-view. On last night's Impact from the Gateway Center Arena at College Park in College Park, Georgia. You had Tom Hannafin and Matthew Rainwalt on commentary. Show opened, of course, with a match between Mustafa Ali of Order 4 and BDE. Mustafa Ali had the remainder of Order 4, the Great Hands, Jason Hodgson, John Schuyler, Special Agent Zero, and Tasha Steelz in his corner, while BDE had Swan in his corner. Mustafa Ali won in just under 5 minutes. Another singles match, you had Jeff Hardy with Matt Hardy in his corner defeat Brian Myers of the System with the remaining members of the System in their corner. Moose defeated Bear Bronson in 13 minutes 8 seconds, and Moose with Alicia Edwards in her corner, and Bear Bronson with the remainder of the System in his corner. Then you had in six women tag action, the Diamond Collective of Tessa Blanchard, Victoria Crawford, and Mila Moore defeated the team of Mila Grace, Harley Hudson, and Jody Threat. Eric Young defeated Brad Attitude in just under 4 minutes. And the main event saw the System duo of Cedric Alexander, Eddie Edwards defeat Leon Slater and Mike Santana. And also on last night's show, former WCW star Buff Bagwell made an appearance, claiming he wants to get back in the ring. Of course, he at 54 years old, recently coming off of a leg amputation caused by a car accident he was involved in. Have to kind of wonder if he can really do it. But then again, I do remember back in the late 80s early 90s, after his motorcycle accident, his ankle was amputated. Kerry Von Erich did go around wrestle with a prosthetic leg, so I guess it's not entirely impossible. Well, with that being said, now I'm going to be going back and forth between Thursday and Friday here because of the fact. So with last night being, of course, the go home Impact before from Thursday Night Impact on AMC before tonight's Sacrifice. Tonight's Sacrifice. So I can get the information here. Coming from the Alario Center in Westwego, Louisiana, we'll see in a no disqualification match, Elena Black will be taking on Mara Sade in a feud that's been building for the past month here. Eddie, as Moose had said, he'd be going through all the members of the System, and he'll finish off his little tour de force, as it were, as he will be facing Eddie Edwards in a singles match tonight. Of course, Eddie Edwards will have the remainder of the System of Bear Bronson, Brian Myers, and Cedric Alexander in his corner, while Moose will have Alicia Edwards in his corner. In a mixed tag team match, international champion Trey Miguel teams with Jada Stone to take on the Order 4's Mustafa Ali and Tasha Steelz, with the remainder of Order 4 at ringside. Another tag team match that was set up on last week's Impact. You have Elijah and the Hometown Man taking on AJ Francis and Frankie Kazarian. Kazarian, the self-supposed king of TNA. In a match that was set up about 2 weeks ago on Impact, in a three-way match for the TNA Knockouts World title, NXT's Ariana Grace, with Channing Lorenzo in her corner, will be defending the title against Dani Luna, who is finally getting her shot after having earned it towards the end of last year before visa issues kind of put her title shot on hold a bit. And the most recent champion, Lei Ying, who is, of course, getting her contractual rematch here. She'll have Zaya Brookside, her Angels Warrior tag partner, in her corner. Then Leon Slater is set to defend the X Division title against Eric Young, as Eric Young cashes in his briefcase, his Feast or Fire briefcase, in which he got an X Division title shot. And also, and in the main event for the TNA World title, in a match that's been building for the past couple months here, Mike Santana will be defending the TNA World title against former champ Steve Macklin. So that's all the TNA stuff we have for you. So now let's take a look at Ring of Honor / and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. As of course, last night's Ring of Honor show was the go home before their big event coming up tonight up in Canada. Last night's Ring of Honor and Honor Club took place at the WJCT Studios in Jacksonville, Florida, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary, airing on Ring of Honor Wrestling.com. Persephone defended the CMLL Women's World title on the show, answering the challenge of Lacey Lane, the former I can't remember what her name, whether Chance Katana. Anyways, so answering the challenge of Lacey Lane and successfully retaining the title on last night's show in 9 minutes 28 seconds in a mixed six-person tag match. The team of Skyflight of the Martin brothers, Dante and Darius Martin, teamed with Zeta Steel to defeat the grizzled young veterans of James Drake and Zach Gibson and Isla Dawn in 10 minutes 26 seconds. Myron Reed of the Rascals, with Desmond Xavier and Zachary Winston in his corner, defeated Mansoor of the M&M TV connection, with Johnny TV and Mason Madden in his corner. The Japanese stable duo from the Mighty Don't Kneel, known as one of the major stables in Japan, TMDK. The duo of Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols defeated the team known as Better Together of Ori Gold and Hader Horvitz in a proving ground match to determine to possibly get a shot at the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title. If the challenger had lasted the time limit or won the match, they would have earned a shot at the Women's Pure title. Deonna Purrazzo fended off the challenge of Robin Renegade in 6 minutes 24 seconds. Anthony Ogogo of Shane Taylor Promotions defeated Nick Camarada of the Factory. Red Velvet successfully defended her Ring of Honor Women's World Television title over Trisha Dora of Shane Taylor Promotions. And the main event saw Athena retain the Women's World title over Maya World as she prepares for a title shot coming up, and we'll get to that in a moment. Get to that in a moment here. As coming up tonight. Coming up tonight from the St. Clair College Sportsplex in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. It actually is a pay-per-view, they said. So, Ring of Honor and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling will be co-promoting Global Wars Canada. Basically, a card in which talent from Ring of Honor and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling will be represented here. The night will open up with a 6-way scramble match in which you'll have Jake Christ, Brent Banks, CMLL's Barbaro, Cavamario, Michael Allen, Richard Clark, Ace Austin from representing Ring of Honor, and Michael Oaklew representing Rev Pro will be all involved in the match. In a tag team match, Eddie Kingston and Ortiz will take on the duo of Tommy Billington, the Dynamite Kid Jr., the Dynamite Kid, the modern day Dynamite Kid, nephew of the original, and Adam Priest. In 6-man tag action, Bhupinder Gujar teams with CMLL's Maskara Dorada and Psycho Mike to take on the Lethal Twist Ring of Honor 3-man team of Jay Lethal and then Blake Christian and Lee Johnson. Former AEW National Champion Ricochet will be taking on TNA's Rich Swann on the show. In a match for the Ring of Honor Women's World Television title, as Red Velvet defends against Alice Crowley. In a match for the Ring of Honor Women's Pure title, Deonna Purrazzo will be defending against Giselle Shaw, the former TNA Knockouts world champion. In a match in what I believe will be a 4-way match to crown the first ever Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champion, Bishop Dyer and Kaito Kiyomiya will be taking on Bryce Hansen and Mo Jabari. They'll also be taking on the Good Brothers of Ken Anderson and Doc Gallows, and the Gates of Agony from AEW, Bishop Khan and Toa Leona will also in that match. In a match for the PWA Champions Grail title, Rohan Raja will be defending the title against Stu Grayson. And for the Ring of Honor Women's World title, Athena will be taking on Taylor Rising. Will be answering the challenge of Taylor Rising. Alrighty then, so there we have all caught up on those shows. Let's see. So now we're kind of up to Friday here, as we did look back to yesterday and kind of peek in on today. So now let's go ahead and talk about tonight's SmackDown. As of course we're about 3 weeks away from WrestleMania weekend. So of course, as they continue to build, as WWE continues to build towards WrestleMania on tonight's SmackDown, here's what's going to be going down on tonight's SmackDown as soon as I can find it. Tonight's SmackDown will be coming from the PPG Paints Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on USA Network. In a match that's believed to be setting up for a possible tag match between these two with respective partners. Kit Wilson will be taking on Jelly Roll in a singles match here on tonight. And on title match, United States Women's United States Champion Julia will be taking on former WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton. And in a match that's looking to further the storyline along for the women's world tag team or women's tag team titles, the team known as Charlexa of Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair will be taking on the Bella Twins of Brie and Nikki Bella as they continue to build towards what some people are speculating might be a possible four-way match pitting these two teams, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria from Monday Night Raw, and the current WWE Women's Tag Team Champions of the Irresistible Forces of Nia Jax and Lash Legend. So now we will be, of course, getting ready to now look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision, AEW Collision. Tomorrow night's Collision, which will be live on TNT from the Alliant Energy Powerhouse in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Already scheduled for the show include Tommaso Ciampa taking on Ace Austin. Ace Austin, of course, will be coming off of his match at tonight's Global Wars. In a match, the AEW Women's World Tag Team titles, the team calling themselves Babes of Wrath will be getting their contractual rematch as Harley Cameron and Will Nightingale will try to wrest the titles back from the new champions, Divine Dominion of Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. In a match for the AEW International title, Kazuchika Okada will be defending the title against Kevin Knight. So that's what you have for tomorrow night. And on and Triple A will also be having some action tomorrow night. If you happen to have Fox Latin America, or even I think it will even be on YouTube, coming from the Auditorio GNP Seguras in the historical Puebla de Zaragoza, Puebla, Mexico. Lucha Libre AAA Worldwide will be having its event in which first off, in a four-way match, the AAA World Cruiserweight title, Laredo Kid defends the title against TJ Perkins, WWE's Dragon Lee, and Jack Cartwheel. And Abismo Negro Jr. will be taking on El Fiscal in the other match. All right, so that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up for you tonight. So now, let's with today being Friday, March the 27th, 2026. Let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History is 2019, 2006, 1936, and 1996. All right. So first off, on this date in 1936, so 90 years ago today, on this date 90 years ago today, back in 1936, this date in 1936, Fleischer Studios' Betty Boop and Little Jimmy premiered on this date back in 1936. It was a crossover between Betty Boop and Jimmy Swimmerton's series Little Jimmy. I believe that was a comic series. On this date, 90 years ago today, Fleischer Studios' Betty Boop and Little Jimmy premiered in movie theaters on this date back in 1936. Now moving ahead to the year 1996. On this date in the year 1996, 30 years ago today, This date 30 years ago today. AIC and Yomex's Ninja Cadets premiered on, or was released on this date back in 1996. Ninja Cadets, known in Japan as Ninja Mono, is a 2-episode original video animation OVA anime series produced by AIC and Yomex and created by Eiji Suganuma, who also directed, storyboarded it, and designed the characters. It is a comedy about a group of ninja in training in feudal Japan. All right, so do that one. Now moving on to the year 2006. And on this date in the year 2006, 20 years ago today, on this date in the year 2006, WWE held its Monday Night Raw on this date from the Quest Center in Omaha, Nebraska. It was actually the Go Home Raw before that year's WrestleMania, which was coming up that following Sunday on April the 2nd. The main event saw John Cena defeat Vince McMahon via DQ. In a women's tag match, Trish Stratus and Tori Spelling defeated the team of Candice Michelle and Victoria. Shawn Michaels defeated Shawn Michaels and Triple H wrestled to a no contest in 13 minutes. The show opened up with Kane defeating Carlito by DQ. So this was all on the Go Home Raw before that year's WrestleMania. All right, so with that being said, of course, we do have one more piece of niche history to touch upon here. Moving all the way up to the year 2019, which of course was 7 years ago today. On this date, 7 years ago today. So let's pull that up. Back in the year 2019. The 30th issue of Volume 6 of Batman Beyond DC Comics went on sale on this date back in 2019. It was the story was titled "The Final Joke Epilogue." So I'm guessing it was the finish of the Final Joke storyline as written by Dan Jurgens, with art by Evan Shaner, lettered by Travis Lanham, and Jordi Belair doing the coloring. All right, so with all that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. We'll, of course, be back here Sunday with more niche news. Well, actually, no, we'll be back here Sunday, as I'll be joined by Terry from Mighty Geek Studios, as we will be taking another trip down Comics History Lane, looking back at comics that went on sale in August 1940 from David McKay and Columbia, I believe. So, with all that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope everybody enjoyed the show, and I'll see you all back here on Sunday. Bye.